you become platoon leaders. All right? The Army's PRT manual does a good job of getting you good enough to be in shape to pass the PT test, to look like you're in the Army as long as you eat well. But most people in the Army, A, don't do PRT the way it's designed to be done, and B, we don't eat very good because we eat when we can eat. So that leads to a lot of unfit, overweight people with bad backs. Welcome to the Army. And these are going to hurt, your back's going to hurt. So they're going to talk to us on a better way of A, eating, figuring out your nutrition, lifting, and programming. So when you're platoon leaders and you're in charge of 30, 40 soldiers, you can come up with a program that fits their different ability levels all at the same time, while staying within mission and being able to complete the missions that we're given. Because war ain't getting no easier, the mountains ain't getting no smaller, and the rucks ain't getting any lighter, because now everything's got a different battery, and you have to carry like 7 batteries for everything that you have. So it's just going to be heavier, it's going to be longer, and it's going to be harder when you're in charge fighting the wars. So they're going to help you make it just a little bit easier on you and your soldiers. I'll let them introduce themselves. Other than that, all right, so pay attention, take notes, have your paper out, ready to scribble notes. If you have questions, ask the questions. They're the experts, all right? They're going to give you their emails on a slideshow. I'll send a slideshow out to you all when it's all done. If you have questions, I'm sure they'll let you email them. Get the knowledge that you need, all right? Cool. Go ahead.
Thanks.
All right, what's up, everybody? I'm Alycia Israel, columnist for elitefts, but also I'm a nationally qualified figure competitor and powerlifter as well. I have a master's degree in exercise physiology and also my certification to be a strength coach. I'm also the personal training coordinator at Ohio State, so I kind of work with their ROTC program a little bit with special event programming, but nothing too much. So this is really cool, just so you guys know. Like, not a lot of universities get to do this stuff or even understand the application. So it's pretty sweet that you guys have this opportunity. But my specialty is women's strength training and making women strong, shredded badasses, essentially. So that's my job.
Yeah.
There you go.
Hi guys, I'm Zach Gallmann. I compete mostly in strongman. I do a little bit of powerlifting and weightlifting. I've been at national level and the amateur world championships twice. I was at the 82nd Airborne for 4 years. I was a medic with the 319th Artillery. Everybody here going to be our artillery? All right, there you go. So this will be really, the strength part of this will be really important for you guys. Shooting from the hip at 115s. I was a strength coach with Spot Athletics with J.L. Holdsworth for a long time. He's probably one of the best strength coaches in the country. I learned a lot from him, and I continue to be a columnist at elitefts. So, and also I have a little project called Finding Strength, which is really applied to this. But yeah, like you said before, if you guys have questions when this is over, you want to email us, please email me. I'm always here to answer questions. So, Joe.
And lastly, my name is Joe Schillero. I'm also a competitive powerlifter. I've represented the U.S. at WPC Worlds in Florida. I've competed a lot of different places and continue to compete. I have a master's degree in exercise physiology as well. I'm also the fitness director at Ohio University. I also do a lot of work with mental health and training, which we won't go into a ton during this presentation, but is something that I've written a lot about and will also apply to you guys as well, is the relationship between mental health and training and how these things all tie together. So like you said, email us if you have any questions. We have a lot of resources in addition to what's in this presentation of articles and videos and things like that. If there's a topic that we touch on a little bit and you want to know more about, just let us know and we can send you some more information. Okay? So the context, back up. So the goals for today, I know that you guys are all in school, you're all used to sitting and listening to presentations. I like to be very concrete with what you guys are going to take from today. So the goals for today is we want to increase your knowledge in what makes up an effective strength training program and a program in general that hits all these different areas of things you guys are going to need. how it applies to real-world military situations. That's something Zach's going to focus on a little more with his experience and how his training is carried over to that. How to prevent injury through training, practical nutrition strategies, and some common myths between male and female training, which Alycia is going to go into a little more too. These are all things that there's a lot of misinformation out there, there's a lot of lack of information out there, and so this is something that hopefully you guys will take some good, solid information from that you can apply directly after you leave here today. And then we're also going to, after lunch, do some practical hands-on work with proper technique for some foundational strength movements and work on techniques for training effectively as a team. So not just techniques of here's how you squat correctly, but here's how you squat correctly with a group of 5, 6, 7 people. Because you need to learn how to train effectively as a team and cue each other, coach each other. When you have a group of 30, 40, 50 people that you're working with, you have to be able to all not only be lifting, you also have to be coaching. And that feeds into everything you guys do with what you currently do as well. So those are some things we're going to go over for today. The context for today is I want to look at the difference between training versus working out. So it seems like it's the same thing, but it's a good difference that I want you to think of in the framework as we go through all this today. Working out is just performing exercise for the sake of performing exercise. It's I ate like crap yesterday, I should probably go do something in the gym today. You know, you just go do something, you feel like you worked out. Nothing wrong with that for the average person, but when you guys have goals that you know are specific and are going to carry over to what you do in your jobs and other people rely on you for, it needs to be more than that. It needs to be strategized, it needs to be calculated, it needs to be done with a goal in mind. So training is working towards a set goal or goals. And something that's good to keep in mind for this too is this is in big picture context. So you may have days where you don't know what you're going to do when you go in that day, or you get something thrown at you, and it's good to be able to adapt to those things. But when we talk about training, we talk about in the big picture context, is everything you do in the gym going to carry over to your goals for you in the military, for you helping each other, for all of those tasks that you know you have to do. So when we go through this presentation today, try not to think of all these things as just working out. We're thinking about them as training. It's for a reason, it's carrying over to a goal. And with that context, training needs to be designed intelligently in ways that will build a strong, broad foundation that will carry over your specific needs. Zach's going to talk about this a little more when it goes into what you guys are going to be doing in your actual jobs moving forward. But this pyramid is something that's very, very important to training, whether you are in the position you're in, whether you're an athlete. Everybody needs to understand this. This pyramid has these different areas of skill of what your training will be comprised of. So you have skill development, specific physical preparedness, and general physical preparedness. What you learn in your specific job duties in the military of what you're going to be performing is going to be up here at the top. And you may have heard this phrase before, but your pyramid is only as tall as it is wide. So this down here, this general physical preparedness, is going to be some of this training we're going to be talking about today that lays the foundation for specific physical preparedness. So a lot of the things we'll talk about will be here, it's a little bit of in this middle part, and it's all going to set the foundation for what you do in your actual jobs. If you're lacking down here, you're not going to be able to have a very good pyramid up at the top. And that's something really important to understand. And that's something that in America today people are lacking their understanding of, is they have everybody immediately wants to jump into specific learning, the specific skills, specific task. You know, when you look at youth athletics, an example of it in there is you have a kid that wants to go learn all these agility drills for football, but he doesn't even know how to jump correctly. And that's kind of what we're talking about, is we need to build this foundation using these things that while at first glance you might think, oh, does this really carry over to my job? It's going to, because it's the foundation for up here. And Zach's going to talk about that a little more with specific examples of the jobs you guys may be doing in the field. So this general physical preparedness consists of these things, and this is definitions from the National Strength and Conditioning Association. they've been starting to put a few more, there's not a ridiculous amount, but they've put a few more tactical resources out there. So some things to look at too. Email us if you'd like us to send you any of those things. It's pretty basic what they have, but they do starting to get some more things directed towards your population. So we have flexibility, mobility, be able to move, plyometric training, be explosive, speed, agility, and speed endurance development, be fast and be in shape, and resistance training, be strong. So you be move, be explosive, be fast and in shape, and be strong. Now the reason I put those arrows over at the side there is all these things don't need necessarily equal attention. And that's something we're going to talk a little bit more as we're going forward. You guys, depending on what your job is, you may need more of these things necessarily than these things. If you had somebody who plays a specific sport where mobility and flexibility, they need it, it's like their primary thing they need, they're going to spend more time up here. You guys are most likely going to spend a little more time down here. A little bit of this stuff is going to be necessary. You can never neglect any one of these things, but down here is going to be what you're going to need the most of. So keep that in mind. For principles of effective training, so any training that you do, these things are going to be extremely important. Zach's going to talk a little bit more about specificity, but basically you train a certain way for a certain outcome. It's like the whole training concept. How you train needs to be, train as A, it leads to B. We need to be thinking like that. We need to be thinking strategically as you design training. Overload, training with a greater intensity than you're used to. At some point, things have to get harder. That's one of the problems with just working out and taking things out of, say, a magazine every day, or just picking a random workout off a website. If it doesn't overload over time, you're not going to get better. The human organism needs to adapt. And it adapts, and you need to continue to push the limits to make it continue to adapt. If you just do the same thing every day, you're going to get used to it. You're not going to keep getting better. So you need to overload. And then progression. To get stronger, at some point you got to add weight to the bar. That same idea of things have to progress as you're moving forward. This little picture here is an example of this old myth about this guy who carried this cow from when it was a baby calf on his back, and he carried it every day. And starting from day one when the calf was born, carried it on his back, carried it up the hill, it was easy, did it every day. So as the calf started getting older and bigger and gaining weight, the guy started getting stronger and in better shape. And then since he did it every day, he was able to keep doing it. Now if he would have went from day one, picking up the calf, and then waited till the cow got this big, and then tried to carry him up the hill, it probably wouldn't have happened. But because he did that steady every day, and he got stronger as the cow got bigger, he progressed, he got stronger. It's kind of a way to think about this as an analogy of how we want training to be. Consistent progression that will allow you to get stronger and better as your demands increase. So we talked about what's in your toolbox for these things. For your warm-up and your functional flexibility and mobility, we want to prepare for your training activity, dynamic and systemic, explosive, and then general and targeted. So the two main things that you want your flexibility and your warm-up to accomplish are going to be prepare you for your training activity and prevent injury. That's the main thing. And when you keep those two goals in mind, it's going to allow you to create something that's practical and that is not wasting time, that is not inefficient. So when we talk about preparing for your training activity, we talk about dynamic and systemic, which means you're moving and you're moving everything. So the drills you do to, whether it's your light jog to get warmed up, you do some leg swings, things like that, things that just get dynamically moving. You may have heard before that you don't want to do just sitting there and doing a ton of static or holding stretches before you train, especially before resistance training. So when we warm up for training, you're not just going to sit there on the floor and for 45 minutes stretch. You're going to do things that are dynamic and prepare you for your activity. Explosive. This is important because, especially for you where you are not getting ready for the NFL Combine to go hopefully make a team and jump as high as possible. Explosiveness is not your number one priority. But being explosive in your warm-ups will benefit your other training the rest of your workout. And the reason being is because of your nervous system and how it works, that when you start being explosive, it wakes everything up. So when you're doing a warm-up, even if it's just a couple jumps, a couple bounds, something like that, a couple medicine ball throws, this can help wake up your nervous system for when you actually do your training. When I do my squat training, in between my squat warm-ups with just the bar, I just do 3 sets of 3 box jumps, and I'll do in between my warm-ups. Doesn't take much time, warms me up, and you'd be surprised how much better. Do the same thing before I overhead press or bench press. I do medicine ball throws, and you'd be surprised how being explosive during your warm-ups, you'll feel better when you go and actually do your training. General and then targeted. So when you warm up, you want to just hit everything to get your whole body warmed up, and then you can target just some things that if you know you're going to be doing, say, an overhead press on this day, and you know your shoulder bothers you a little bit, you need to spend a little extra more time on your shoulder, you can do that. You can build in those specific things, but you generally want to go general and then down to targeted. And then prevent injury, so addressing your specific needs. If you, as you have people that you're training, or you're training in a group, and you know that one of your fellow cadets has a certain injury that bothers them a lot, they have a back problem, they have a knee problem, and they need to, say, do some terminal knee extensions to help warm their knees up. They're going to spend more time doing that than maybe the other people will, or maybe as an entire group you need to do that. So those are things you can address. And this is not necessarily what you have to do, but this is an example of what I think a good basic warm-up is. Jim Wendler, who writes the 5-for-1 program, is real big on this. It's just this dynamic warm-up called the DeFranco Agile 8. Joe DeFranco is a strength coach in New Jersey. It's a couple of things of soft tissue work. Foam roll your IT band, foam roll your adductor, and then hit your glute with a cross ball, and then some dynamic movements, rollovers into V-sits, fire hydrant circles with your legs, mountain climbers, groiners, and a static hip flexor stretch. They have YouTube videos online that show people do it if you ever want to check these out. But this is a good example of hit some of these areas that to loosen them up, especially if you've been sitting for a while or it's early in the morning, you just woke up, and then hit some of these dynamic movements. For plyometric methods, dynamic and explosive exercises, you're training to produce the most force in the shortest amount of time. It's not conditioning. So when you build in some of these explosive plyometric movements into your program, when people say plyometrics, what they usually think about is like a workout where you're just jumping on and off of a box like nonstop for like 20 minutes. That's more conditioning. What we're talking about with plyometric methods is building a lot of force, which you need to be somewhat rested to do. So when we talk about, instead of doing 20 minutes of box jumps, we talk about doing just a set of 3. You jump up, you step down, you reset, catch your breath, jump up again, and you're putting 100% effort into that. And that's going to build your explosiveness, and it'll also activate your nervous system when you do things like squatting, other movements that you're going to be doing as you train. And with this, learning the right movements, you want to use this as an opportunity to learn how to jump and land correctly, which will help prevent injury. One of the biggest things with, when I actually worked with Zach at the Spot Athletics, we had all these different athletes that would come in, and one of our top priorities was teaching them how to jump and land correctly. If you have somebody that jumps up, or they jump off of something, and they land and their knees come together, they're going to have an ACL injury at some point. And I'm sure, as you guys know, you're not going to be walking on a carpet like this all the time. You're going to have to jump, you're going to have to land, you're going to have to be able to do it correctly and load the correct muscles so that way you don't get injured. You can't afford to have a senseless injury that was simply because you didn't know how to jump and land correctly. And it sounds silly, but you would be surprised how many people don't load their hip hinge movement correctly, don't load their glutes, hamstrings correctly, and that leads to injuries. So these jumping movements are an opportunity for you to practice how to jump and how to land correctly as you're working on that explosive part of your movement. Like I talked about, it hits the nervous system. Simple is the way to go. You can do it between your warm-ups like I talked about before. An example progression for these types of things, and we could go a little more into this too, but it could be simple. If you say wave things over the course of 4 weeks, with box jumps. Week 1, you figure out what approximately your best box jump is. Week 2, you do 3 sets of 3 with about 3/4 of that. Week 3, you do 4 sets of 3, do an extra set, you're increasing that workload. Week 4, you do 5 sets of 3, then you retest and you try to bump it up. Simple stuff like that. It doesn't have to be super complicated. As you guys know, we're going to talk about this in a little bit, time it has to be efficient. Your training needs to be efficient, it needs to be practical. You don't want to spend half an hour just setting up the box for box jumps and then spend 20 minutes doing this complicated workout. You need to be able to get in, get the work done, and get out. So these are some things that you can look at on how to do that. For speed, agility, and speed endurance, speed, just to define these couple things, because these are 3 different types of abilities that you have. Speed is achieving high movement velocities, which basically means moving fast. Agility means explosively changing movement velocity, so changing direction fast. So speed is me running to that door as fast as I can. Agility is me starting to run to that door, seeing I need to run to that door and changing direction. And speed endurance is I need to run through this building to go do a bunch of different tasks, and I need to be able to keep up my endurance to be able to do that. You guys need some of all of those abilities when you go through your training. I highlighted speed endurance because that's going to be the most important for you guys, as I'm sure you know with the tests that you do and some things like that. Zach's going to talk about a little more about that too. But with speed agility and speed endurance, you guys aren't track athletes, but you need to be able to maintain doing the work that you're doing for a period of time. Having effective levels of your speed endurance will also help your strength training. You have to be in shape enough to lift weights, and that's something that a lot of people forget as they go through training, so keep that in mind. To improve your speed and agility, you can sprint. Hill sprints is a really good way to train your sprinting ability. The reason being is that, as you see with that picture right there, when you're on a hill, it forces you to use the right mechanics for sprinting to do it correctly. When you sprint correctly, your shin's at a 45-degree angle, your body weight's forward, and when you sprint up a hill, you have to do it or else you'll fall backwards. So sprinting up a hill is a very good way to train that ability without having to worry about coaching a million little different nuances, especially if you're not a speed expert. So running up hills is tough. It's going to build mental toughness, it's going to build your conditioning, and it's going to build your ability to be fast, simply and effectively. Improve your posture will help with your speed and agility. If you find yourself being somebody who's walking around with their shoulders rounded forward all the time, we know that's not good. Make sure you're standing with your shoulders back. And that would carry over to when you're actually running. And then get stronger, which you're going to see this theme keep coming up, is that strength is going to carry over to a lot of these things because you can apply more force into the ground. That's something people don't realize all the time is if you want to get faster, you can't just do speed drills every day, all day, every day. You have to get stronger because you have to remember that when you're sprinting, you're pushing your foot into the ground and you can only go as fast as you can go, as hard as you can push your foot into the ground. Especially if you guys have gear that you're carrying and you need to move quickly in a certain period of time, only as strong as you are to push your foot to the ground and drive your body weight and the weight of whatever you're carrying forward is only as fast as you're going to go. And then improve your body composition and relative strength. And I put a picture of some pull-ups there because if you can get good at doing pull-ups and doing a lot of pull-ups, generally you'll be faster because your relative body composition will improve. If people suck at doing pull-ups, generally they're not very fast. And that doesn't mean that necessarily getting good at pull-ups is physically making you faster, but it's an indicator of how strong you are relative to your body weight. Can you move your body weight effectively? So that's something to keep in mind. That's an indicator of whether you're going to be able to be fast or not. And then improving speed endurance, which is going to be an important one for you guys, is improve your base conditioning. Even if you're at a point in the year where you're not doing a ton of training with each other, you got to start somewhere. Don't come in to a time, if you're going to boot camp or whatever you're doing, don't come in completely out of shape, not having walked outside in like a year. You need to make sure you start somewhere. If it's walking your dog, if it's jumping on the bike, if it's swimming, whatever it is. And then these other methods, tempo runs, which is basically, it's kind of like wind sprints. It's like running hard for a little bit, easy for a little bit, hard for a little bit. Pushing a prowler, which is like a push sled, if you have access to one. Sled drags, sandbag carries, battling ropes. These are all ways you can improve your speed endurance and help you be able to perform work for an extended period of time, to be fast for a long time, which is what's important. It doesn't matter if you can be fast for 5 seconds, you need to be able to be fast all day, carrying all that gear that you're carrying. And then we come to resistance training methods, getting stronger. Why is strength so important? You're going to see this theme keep coming up in this presentation. And like I said, all these other things we talked about, incredibly important. But strength is this foundation and this glue that tends to hold the other ones together. It's incredibly important. It improves everything else in the base of the pyramid. When you get stronger, you're going to get faster. When you get stronger, it'll allow you to do all these other tasks with better efficiency, which will be able to allow you to do it longer. Strength will improve all these things. It's also going to prevent injury. If you can improve your glute and hamstring strength, it's going to prevent knee injury. If you can improve your back strength, it's going to prevent back injury. Build all your strength in all these areas. Be able to press something over your head, it's going to prevent injury. If you can't go in the weight room and move through a range of motion with, you know, a decent amount of weight for your body weight, what makes you think when you have gear and you're doing it in the field that you're not going to get hurt? You'll get hurt. You got to be able to do it, and you got to be able to do it through your training. And then strategic development that takes practice. So strength is important to focus on because realistically, you guys can take a group of people, I can take a group of people, and you can get them in shape in a pretty short period of time. You see that with like high school football players when they come in at the beginning of the school year. First day, everybody's puking and sucks and is out of shape. A couple weeks, everybody's pretty caught up. You can get people in condition pretty quick. Can't get people strong really quick, which is why it takes dedicated time and practice. It takes consistency to get stronger. I could take somebody in 3 weeks and I could kick their butt and get them in some conditioning shape. I can't take somebody in 3 weeks and necessarily get them strong enough as I want them to be. It takes time, which is why you don't want to discount strength at the expense, or you don't want to have strength be discounted because of focusing on other parts of your training. And then mission readiness, which is what Zach is going to talk about moving forward. So I'll let Zach take over here, and he's going to talk a little bit about his experience and how these things carry over to the field.